Today's video we're talking about a trick. When I'm talking about form, I'm talking about lead generation forms on your website so people can fill out the name, contact information, all that good stuff to contact your company. A trick that will result in literally more than double the sales from those leads you get from those contact forms, stemming from any PPC campaign that you have or any other campaign or traffic that you have to your site, really as a byproduct. But because I'm a PPC guy here, I'm talking about how to increase PPC profitability. This is one extremely easy, depending on how you look at it, way to do it, and guaranteed way to do it, I'll add. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through some stats to first, kind of lay the foundation of why you want to do the, add to your form process, how you handle a form lead, how much that affects your sales when you don't do it one way versus another more ideal way, how to execute on that the easiest way possible if you do want to start doing it the right way and get twice as many sales plus, at least twice as many, in fact. And I also have just some other tips for you to be able to make more money from the leads you have. Also while this video is about form leads, I'm talking a little bit about your phone call leads, if you got them coming in, how to also improve the process of when those calls come in, you make more sales from that as well, given the topics are kind of interrelated. Either people call or fill out the form. If you're not a person who does both, by the way, you should, because right away that's going to give you a bump. And a lot of customers or clients or prospects are on a website, they don't see a phone number, that what they think is, there's no way to complain to this company if they rip me off. I'm going to go through an email. It's way easy to ignore it. It's a lot more likely that they're going to rip me off than somebody who has a phone number proudly displayed on their website. Not only this, as I mentioned on other videos before, people have different methods of preferred methods of communication. Some people only like calling, basically, if they can. Whereas if you try to force them to fill out a form, they won't do it. Or, unless they really, really want to talk to you and you've got something unique they can't get somewhere else, they'll do it, but otherwise they'll look, it's too easy, with what you're doing, to click back to Google and click on something else. Some people want to fill out a form, particularly, if you're in a situation where you can't call, well, you just lost your opportunity. This also can go into, when you're talking about live chat, there's some people who expect that. You don't have live chat, you're going to lose some sales. Sorry. This is part of doing business. It's not about you, it's about the consumer. The better you focus on the consumer as you set up your lead generation systems or your sales funnel that you're trying to create, starting with PPC ads to get sales, the more you're going to make from PPC. That's the golden rule. Think about the prospect. How can I do it better than the competition? If I do it better than the competition, given the price of traffic in my space, I'm going to win no matter what. So go ahead and either take that money or do away with it and just get the mediocre returns. But you got to be able to do as good as the top 20%. If you want for sure PPC to work, given 10 to 20% of the people in it, the Google search ad space, particularly, even make money. Most of people make very little to nothing, and that's just the way that the system's designed. Google wants people to try harder, serving their users the better. So anyway, with all that said, I'll get into a quick prelude here and then talk about the things that I talked about, said I would talk about here. Many PPC advertisers still do not know about how much lead response times, noted what that is to note what that is. It's basically when somebody fills out the form already, how long does it take you to respond to the lead? Or when somebody calls, how long does it take you to respond to the person calling? But we're talking about mainly forms here. How lead response times. And by the way, people don't talk about phone response times at all. They talk about lead response times in terms of the digital marketing community, but they don't talk about phone response times. And I'm going to be I feel, the only time that I've seen people talking about it, particularly as well as it pertains to how much money you can make with PPC. But most people even yet still, whereas digital marketing people know, if people are doing their own marketing in-house, they don't understand how much this lead response time from the time that the form is filled out, lead generation form is filled out, to the time they reply affects how much they're actually going to make from that PPC campaign. And then they ride their PPC person, let's say, the bag holder rides the PPC person, I need more leads. When in reality, the competitions respond to the lead better and ending up with 3 times more sales from the same exact opportunities. When everything else is the same and they respond at a better rate, and that one thing alone, you'll get crushed. It's that important. That's why you can double the amount of sales from just doing a little and just adding a little bit of tweak to that to make it, give it away a little bit faster. There's a consistent, easy way to guarantee that it'll happen, given the way that I'm going to mention here. And the lead response times will affect how much they're going to make with PPC ultimately. Whether you're going to make $2 million a year or $500,000 a year, a lot of it comes down to, or can specifically come down to, how fast you respond to your leads as they're coming in through the contact form, but also through the phone calls that you're getting. If you get that, if you're a website, e-commerce website, guys, by the way, if you're selling something for under $100, it also applies to you, because a lot of people are going to call or ask a question first. And if you're not there to respond to the lead right away, they'll go and buy from a competitor. People are flighty. Oh, you're not going to answer me fast? Oh, I'll just go to somebody else that's willing to answer me fast. Then they got the sale. You just wasted your money on a click for nothing. And why $100 plus? That's about the kind of the threshold in which you can get away with not having really that good of customer service and still doing okay with PPC. For a $40 item, people they're not going to, they may have questions, but they're not going to bother answering. They're just going to buy and check it out. If it doesn't work, oh well, or I'll return it, whatever. So just to let you know where things are. So they don't know how much the lead response times affects them when they're doing PPC, the average person there, that is. Both in terms of how fast you respond to your form leads, like I said, and how much time you take to answer the phone, including the hold times. So if you do have a system that automatically answers the phone when people call, what they call the IVR system in the phone world, which is your, basically at the beginning a greeting, hey, welcome to ABC Corp. For sales, press 1, that kind of thing. When somebody calls and they hit 1 and they talk to a secretary, the time between the talk to the secretary and you get to talk to the salesperson, that's hold times in that case. But also, if you don't have an IVR, the time it takes to answer the phone and deal with it, or if you get to answer it at all, it goes to voicemail, also affects how much your money going to make greatly. Okay? So those are the key things. If you want to double your sales, and assuming you only had form leads, you could do the form lead trick that I'm going to give you. And if you take my advice on the phone advice on how to handle the phone calls, you'll for sure at least double the amount of money you're making without having to touch your PPC campaigns at all. And so yes, this channel is about PPC strategy, but I like to talk about the fundamentals, because I often have, not that often, but we have clients time to time who I see, let's say 20% of the time, they aren't handling their leads very well. We have call tracking programs. We have CallRail. Which is a call tracking program where you can have all your calls tracked. Your calls go through a routed number, and then you can physically see how long it took for somebody to answer. That way, did they answer? Did it go to voicemail? That kind of thing. Did they hang up? How long it took them to hang up? And you mentioned it to them. Half the time, if they're smart, they fix it. Half of the time, they get pissed, basically. But ultimately that's a big factor. It's way bigger than people think. And so what happens is, and these are new clients where and if they don't fix it a lot of times and it's really bad, the relationship doesn't last. But people don't think about when you're getting into running PPC and you're starting a business. These are amateurs in business, I would say, or would call it. They don't think about how much you need to have somebody to answer that phone or form fill right away and think, oh, I'll just answer it when I get time. And if I'm busy doing something else, screw it, I'll answer it later. Or, basically, if somebody, the salesperson's busy, they can answer it later. Or if you go a little bit more advanced here, if somebody calls or fills out the form on the weekend, screw it, I'll deal with it Monday. Or another one is on lunch break, if I don't have anybody available, screw it. Each one of these things, these thoughts are affecting your sales. And so when they think it's going to be so easy to get into business with, oh, I got a website, I got my products there, as the leads come in, I'll deal with them. You got to have somebody, you got to have dedicated, it's either got to be you or somebody you hire that's got to be dedicated to sales so that you can be there immediately as soon as the leads come in. Not a lot of people do that, but you have to do as good as the top 20%, like I said, to compete in your market. Unless your PPC is 10 times better, then you can get away with that. But that's, for you guys that are, don't know much about PPC, that's not realistic. So a good thing to always do is just to go and to all your competitor sites and ask a question and see how long it takes them to respond, how the salesperson you get, how do they handle it? Were they knowledgeable? Were they not knowledgeable? Is the person you're trying to hire to get out of answering the calls, are they as good as your top 20% of people that are, your market leaders? Is it as good as them? This is another element. This is all, and so people don't think about all this stuff when they get into business when they're new. This all has to be just as good as your website, the face of your website being professional, so it's trusted there. What you do after they respond is just as important. You got to have both ends covered. So anyway, with all that said, I've got some data for you here that spells out just how much and why this matters so much, how quickly you respond to your form lead and your phone call specifically, okay? But I'll first start out with the calls. This is not talked about anywhere. I wanted to for sure cover this on this video as well before I get into the strategies on how to automate some of this. There's ways to automate the process to make sure that you're responding in a certain amount of time and doing it so you're getting that twice as many sales out of your same clicks, like I said you would here, and have a trick for you to do that today. So this chart here represents the amount of time in which an average call comes in, and the time it takes for that person to get on the phone with the actual sales rep, the knowledgeable sales rep that can actually start answering the sales questions. Not a secretary, not an IVR system, none of that. And so the best is to have your calls, no IVR system. Even if you think it sounds professional, I can tell you for a fact, going directly to the salesperson is the best. Because the longer it takes to get to the salesperson, the more sales you're going to lose. Okay? So if you could screw around and try all these games and not have people available, but here's the percentage of the amount of people that are going to hang up the phone because they're tired of putting up with your crap. All right? And what stage or interval in which they do it on average. This study came from callcenterhelper.com if you want to back up my claims here. Okay, I didn't run this study myself. So here at the top we got 100%. Here at the bottom we got 0%. What we have here is 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minutes. So in terms of the first 4 minutes from the time the initial person calls to the time they get to having a conversation with the salesperson. Obviously, if it goes straight to the salesperson, you're getting 100%. If it takes you a minute to get to that person physically, now you're down to already 40%. If it takes 2 minutes, you're down to about 25%. You're down to 3. If you're to 3 minutes, you're to about 20%. You get under 20% at 4 minutes, and it just keeps going. It's not like a call center where if somebody has a question, people will wait. They have to. They have to jump through your hoops. But these people that want to talk to somebody, they get impatient. They get pissed off more than anything. But also, what does it say about your company if you're not willing to hire enough people to answer your questions right away? They think, if I buy this and it takes them this long to answer my questions, if I ever have questions after I buy, it's going to take forever and it's going to piss me off even worse. And they don't literally think about it like that, but subconsciously they're thinking about past experiences they've had in the past dealing with bad companies, and that's what you're always fighting when you're doing your PPC and trying to make things work. You got to overcome what they've gotten. If you're not a ripoff, you have to prove that you're not a ripoff, because you're going to be judged as a ripoff until you show them otherwise. So you have 2 strikes against you before you even start. And doing little things like making them wait a minute and a half to talk to somebody, that does not reflect good on your company, like it or not. So that's a big, big factor. Okay, 2 more things about the calls here specifically before I get into the form and the strategy I told you about that could double your leads. Now, if you don't have an IVR system where it says, hello, welcome to APC Corp, and you just have it go, you have a normal voicemail system, you're like too small of a company that you think, oh, that's all I need or whatever, which I understand why people have that because they're trying to answer the phone, but if it goes to voicemail and you screw up and you're not available to answer every single call that comes in, particularly on business hours, but anymore, if you're an e-commerce company, they're going to expect you to answer that phone to like 11 o'clock at night. I've seen it. You're going to make a lot more money if you can answer all the way to 11 o'clock versus 5 o'clock. I have a client that does that, and they crush it. People call, they'll even try to call middle of the night, some crazy people out there. And I've seen that the trend's been increasing in that general direction for a while. Just like with the shipping, in 4 or 5 days. Now they want it in 2 days. The standards keep going up as the competition goes up and the stakes are higher. There's more people buying online. You can make more money. The stakes are higher, but also there's the barrier to entries slowly being raised, with this being a major one of them. So if you have a voicemail, no IVR system, if they leave a voicemail when they call, the consumer leaves a voicemail, only about a third will answer when you try to call them back, okay? Even if you try to call right away. Why? Well, think about, again, you have to go back to the consumer. Think about it from their angle. If you're trying to call about plumbing, or well, not even plumbing, we'll just say something else. My foundation's cracked. I need to get it fixed. My foundation on my house is cracked. I need to get it fixed. I call a company. Voicemail. First of all, I'm going to think this company's a joke, probably, or to level at some degree. And I can go back and call somebody else instead of just waiting for this person. Plus, it takes effort to leave a voicemail. People don't like leaving voicemails. So you have all this stuff working against you. They just go back to Google. By the time you've called them back, they've already called somebody else. Not only that, here's even the bigger point. Google, I've made videos about this before. They're judging your ability to serve a user from initial search. Like in the example I gave just a minute ago, if you're typing in foundation repair, Chicago, they have the ads that show up. Every single person who searches for that, assuming you're bidding on that keyword, they're judging, first of all, how many people click through out of all those 4 ads that are on top of Google. And then after they click, how long they spend on that site, and did they come back to Google to click on something else? If somebody goes all the way through your site, even if you have a great conversion rate to a call, if they call and get a voicemail more than like 10% of the time, go back to Google, Google is going to think your business is trash. Their goal is to constantly figure out through split testing of the 10 to 20 people that get cycled in and out of the 4 ads on the top of Google at any given time, which ones serve the user from initial search to satisfied with the least amount of time and the greatest amount of success rate. It wants to drive all the traffic to those people. It wants to drive up the price, can't do it for those people who can't do it very good, so they just get out of the way. It leaves room for anybody to come in new, but if you're not on top of your game there and you can't really compete with the top people in your space that are already been advertising that are doing it, then the cost of the click goes up to a certain degree that they just knock you out without officially kicking you out, but pricing you out. And so they see you not answer the phone. They figure, well, if you're not going to answer the phone, even though they don't literally know that, unless you have Google's call tracking, of course, which would be really bad. But even they could tell, even if you don't have any call tracking that they can see, if they go back to Google, they're going to think you're a joke. they're going to send it to the person that has already been, that they have 2 years of data on already, and they've tested you. You get a short window when you're starting out to see if you're as good as the top guys. If you start showing them you can't answer the phone, it's over before it began or got off the ground. They want to send all the traffic to the ads and companies and sites that serve the user the best, because it gets people long-term to want to click on ads in the future. This is one thing you've got to know if you're going to be good at PPC. Google wants money, yes, but they have a long-term strategy to promote only the people who do the best job there, serving people and get them what they want as quickly as possible, so that in the future, they remember last experience they had, clicking on an ad got them what they wanted fast. So they'll click on an ad in the future, and it builds up long-term growth and revenue. So anyway, if you're going to use a voicemail and go straight to a salesperson, that person's got to answer it 90% of the time. Okay? Even the amount of rings, by the way, matters. Normally, a voicemail that picks up in the 6th ring, I've also seen through the audit that I did that between 4 and 6 rings, you can get 20% more contacts, because people hang up the phone before the 6th ring, more than you think, about 20% of the time. So you always want to pick up the phone as well by the 4th ring, ideally, because if it gets closer to 6 rings, you're going to lose up to 20% of the leads. And if it gets to voicemail, by the way, then now you've really got to drop off. You're going to lose 2/3 of the leads if it actually physically gets to the voicemail. So in other words, pick it up before 4 rings. 5 rings is not your goal even. You want 3, which just said, to keep it simple. So that's another thing to think about. So that's some information about call stats. How fast you respond to the phone calls coming in will dictate if you're going to make money at all, and also what you're going to make. You got to be in the top 20% to make money, because that's how the system's designed. And so you got to be doing as good as your competitor this way as well. Down here, I have a form here. We're getting into the form data now. Before I give you the strategy on how to double your sales, what we have here, again, is the percent of people who abandon, just like I had before here with the calls, and the amount of time in which people took in a study here that was on InsideSales.com, or if you want to check out the source, how long it took for the average company out of thousands of companies that they studied to respond to the form, through calling them specifically. And so respectively, if you respond to the form in 5 minutes, you got basically 100%, almost 100% of the people that will respond. However, wait 15 minutes, the rate in which on their study they show all the way down to about 25% in terms of the response rate to when you go to call the person that at the number that they put on the form, lead form, and they submitted, you only get 25% success contacting or contact rate. Why is that? Well, we always got to think about the consumer. It all goes back to them again. Why would after 5 minutes you get close to about 90% of people to answer, versus in 15 minutes you only get about 25? Think. Because after about that much time, they have time to go ahead and get into doing something else. They're vacuuming the floor now, or they're looking at another site, or they're on Facebook now. Now they're busy doing something else. So they're either talking to somebody else in your space, or they're doing something else. So it drops off significantly just from that. However, the stats show after 45 minutes, you actually have a better chance of getting hold of them if you wait 45 minutes versus 15 minutes, because a good chunk of the 15-minute people are already talking to one of your competitors, and they're more likely busy than if they waited 45 minutes, interesting enough. At 45 minutes, you're getting about just over 40% of people to respond. And then after 90 minutes, it's about 39-40%. And then after 8 hours, if you do that, it's about 30%. After 16 hours, studies showed that we had about 38% or so. After 48 hours, you had about 22%. And after 96 hours, it's about 17%. So the main thing here to learn is you got to answer, if you can anyway, which I'm going to show you a way. If you get the person on the phone in the first 5 minutes, it's not creepy to call them right away. They fill out the form for a reason. Respectively, there's no reason why, there's no float time that you have to wait to respond. Now, I will argue in some spaces, if you're in a consulting space, you don't want to look desperate. Calling them in 3 minutes, that seems a little bit like, if you want to talk about power play stuff. But if it's a foundation that you're trying to be repaired, they want to be contacted as soon as possible. Period. Full stop. So the rate in which the company got the person that filled out the form on the phone drops literally from 90% down to 20%. Or if you want to say the average here goes from 90% if you can get call the person within the first 15 minutes, versus if you wait, 8 hours the next day, whatever, you're getting in the 30s. So it's literally 3 times, roughly speaking, you're going to be 3 times more successful getting that person on the form. And I look at a lot of people's data here at the firm, manage dozens of campaigns. I look at the response rates to the forums because people give us that data, and all the time do they chase people down. But people also don't want to. Sometimes, of course, they do, but a lot of times still, people don't want to call the people on the forum. Why? Because they got a salesperson who does that. Because they're too lazy to do it. Well, they send it to the salesperson. The salesperson doesn't do it, but it's too much trouble to fire them, so they just let them get away with it. And then what do? They want to have the PPC just get better so we don't have to answer the phone quickly. Well, that's fine. That's my job to help people with that. But still, why would you? The PPC has way more potential if you just don't screw up the rest of the stuff, like the response rates and then the quality of the website being trash. There's other things I won't get into. At least get the other stuff in place to where it's as good as the top people. And then when we're trying to beat their PPC strategy, it's easy because instead of having to beat them by 2 or 3x, or we only have to beat them by 2 or 3x versus 10x to make up for all your other inefficiencies. So anyway, the conversion rate of what you're going to get from the leads goes down a lot, as you see. Basically the longer you wait, but specifically if you don't answer in the first 15 minutes. Guess what the amount of people, though, actually will answer a form lead in the first 15 minutes? Most people don't know it. But even if I tell people, like I said, they don't do it because people are apathetic. In general, people want to make money by not doing any work, even the business owners out there. 0.1% of people will answer a form lead within 15 minutes. There's lots of companies in that 0.1%, but as a whole, it's not many. That study again was from the InsideSales.com study that I've seen. So, in other words, if you can respond in the first 15 minutes, the reason why, well, A, they haven't moved on to something else if you call them in 5 minutes, basically. But all your competitors aren't going to be calling them back in the first 5 minutes. They're going to be not moving on to other things, and they're going to be impressed by the fact that you got on the phone right away with them. They'll think that translates into the quality of service you provide. And if they have a problem, like I said, they can call you back and they'll know they'll get service right away. They're judging you on that. So anyway, that's the information I wanted you to know the scale of impact. This stuff about how fast to respond to the leads matters, and how much money will you make with PPC, and if you're going to make PPC money or make a profit with PPC at all. As far as getting into what to do about this to automate, improve what you're doing, all that good stuff, obviously it's first going to take some effort. You're going to spend some money to make sure you can answer the leads all the time. But when you're talking about making 3 times as much from your PPC, you can just do the math, right? That's going to probably easily pay for an employee if you're doing over $500,000 a year in sales already. And if you're not that, you just do it yourself. Answer the darn form leads and the phone calls yourself. Don't make them wait. So how to improve? There's 3 main things here to talk about. The first one, Ninja Bomb. So this is a service that when you can set up on your form When somebody fills out the contact form on your site, wherever that contact form is, whether it's on the contact page or wherever, you can have the phone number, the field where they physically enter the phone number. So when they go ahead and submit the form to send it to you, this service will automatically call a number of your choice, being your salesperson or probably here or whatever, and it'll say, when you pick up the phone, it'll say, you just got a lead from John Smith. Would you like to be put in contact with John Smith? Press 1 if yes. And if you press 1, it'll immediately call the number that was submitted on the form. Pretty cool, huh? So that guarantees when somebody fills out the form from now on, if you install this, that the salesperson's always going to answer the phone or answer the form lead within 5 minutes. Of course, they can now get into, you got to start thinking about, well, maybe they don't answer the phone anymore. I would say if I hired a salesperson, I would be telling them if a call comes in, you have somebody on the line, you have to put the person there specifically, you got to get a couple lines going or whatever, and you got to put the person on, the good people that I deal with, they'll put the person on the hold. They'll say, hey, can you hang on just 1 second? We'll put them on hold, they answer the other call, and they'll say, hey, can I call you back in just 5 minutes? And that at least is better than not responding at all, by a long shot. But ideally speaking, if you get it to the point where they can't answer the phone all the time because they're on the phone all the time, you need a second salesperson. And if you can't afford it, scale up your PPC and then you can afford it. And that's, unfortunately kind of the way that it goes. You're going to have to pay for the salesperson before you have the leads. But then if you have a good PPC program and you do the strategies like I teach you on this channel, you can scale the PPC and you'll fill up the gap of time for that salesperson. And you have to hire ahead of, the leads that you got. Why? Because you're going to end up with at least 2 times more sales because you got someone who can actually answer the phone, answer those form leads through the Ninja Bomb system that will call your salesperson and put them in contact with the form submission and the actual physical calls by themselves that come in. So that's the first thing I would recommend. And that's the main so-called trick that I wanted to share with you on today's video that's going to double your sales. Install this one thing, of course, because you're going to be able to have upwards of 3 times as many people you'll be in contact with, just because when they're the most hot, because you're going to use the system to get a hold of every form lead within like 2 minutes. You're going to make close to twice as much money already. To make sure you're making twice as much, I don't know what ratio of form leads you have to calls, but if you have a lot of calls, then you can take my call advice here as well, which I mentioned that already. Have the phone, take out the IVR system if possible for your landing pages, the number that's on there for your PPC campaigns. You can use an IVR for the main site, that's fine. But send the people directly to the salesperson and make sure, just tell them that you need them to answer the phone every time, even if they're talking to somebody, and answer it within 4 rings is what you expect, period. You're the owner, you're the boss, you should be able to tell them that. Then you have your double the sales, okay? Just do those 2 things. You can thank me later. Respectively, there's a couple other things I wanted to mention to you on today's video though, which is, I have under B here, follow up 12 times. So keep in mind that respectively, every form lead, you're gonna be able to get in touch with like 90% of them, as long as you call them like right away as soon as the form submitted. On the ones that don't, okay, follow up a minimum of 12 times. Why? Well, the stats show, and this was also from InsideSales.com, 81% of people follow up their form leads only 5 times or less. Whereas if you follow up 12 times, basically go after where everybody stops, which you can see there's still a decently high response rate after days even still, you'll get 15% more contacts with your form lead than if you only stopped after 5. So call back like 3 times a day. Don't be too afraid to do it. If they genuinely want the service, they want you to get a hold of them. Don't think about it like, oh, I'm bothering them, because they filled out the form. they can just tell you no, and you stop calling them if they really don't want you to call anymore. Until they say no, your job is to pound them. Call 3 times a day, and for the next 5 days, call them 3 times a day. And then if they don't answer, you can basically forget it then, because you got whatever you're going to get it in that amount of time, that amount of effort, pretty much. But that's the second thing I can recommend to you. The third thing is if you're, first of all, you're not using a CRM system to manage your leads when they come in, you need to. Why? Because a lot of the times after you actually you contact somebody, they're not ready right then. People make decisions on way longer time scales than people want to admit or want to agree with. We'll just say that. When I tell a client, when you start up your PPC ads, you're not going to really see the full effect of your PPC ads until you've ran them for 6 months, not because the ads are going to get better and they need to be broken in, as I've mentioned on my videos here, but there's a time frame in which people are going to get to your site for the first time, and then you get all your sales from it, from all the time that they mess around and wait and think about it and need to get paid and whatever. And it's over months, if not years sometimes, but months, just about in every case, even for lower priced items. But with higher priced items, for sure, anything over $100, it's 6 months for sure before you're really going to see the full effect from the advertising you do today is not going to pay off for 6 months, because there's a float time where people are thinking about it, needing to get paid, whatever. Okay? So during that time, if they call you day one, in the B2B world where you're selling to businesses like services and whatever, they know you have to keep following up. And you put people into a CRM system and you follow them up over time. But for some reason in e-commerce, if they get a contact or for basic services, they don't follow up. We've figured out that you can make twice as many sales if you follow up your leads that you get. So what you do is you use the CRM. If you're doing e-commerce, the phone calls, the form fills you get, hook up an integration with the CRM system so you can track all the people who asked a question and get things set up so that you know if they made a purchase or not. And if they haven't made a purchase, get your salespeople to call these back on a regular basis. For anything like foundation repair service, anything like that, home services, it's the same thing. If somebody calls and asks a question, that's not it. You are going to have, as the call's answered, the leads in your CRM, and you mark it, follow up in 2 weeks. It's different for every business how long it's going to be before you follow up, and by lead it's going to be different. So you don't automate this. The person in charge thinks, how long should I follow up? 2 weeks? Okay, and then they put a note, and then basically what they do when they log into their CRM every day, an alert of all the people, the follow-ups that they need to do that day from reminders that they put previously on each lead come up. So each day they know exactly which leads to follow up. And then as the leads come in, if you have a date in which you've scheduled physically to follow up on. And when they call the person, if they say they're still interested, or as long as they don't say stop contacting me, or no, I'm not going to do this for sure, then you put another reminder, follow up in 2 weeks, follow up in 4 weeks, and you keep doing that until they say no or quit contacting me. You'll make twice as many sales that way. And that seems like a headache, okay? But I promise you'll get a lot more sales from your PPC traffic. So you use a CRM. I don't care what type of business you are, selling to businesses, selling to consumers, doing e-commerce, whatever. Keep track of those leads and have the person that has to answer the phone, instead of twiddling their thumbs, call the people back that contacted you recently and until they say no or say screw off, mark them as following up forever and ever until they tell you to stop contacting them, and you will wind up with a lot more sales. So this one isn't about lead response times, but there's 2 components to it. Getting them on the phone quickly overall, and when you do get them on the phone, don't give up on them until they tell you to F off. And you'll wind up with twice as many sales just by doing the follow-up on the back end. You'll end up with twice as many sales by being able to answer the phone in 4 rings and have it talk to the person right away, or basically within, let's say, within 30 seconds at the very, very longest in which to put that person to wait before they get on the phone with the salesperson. Everything after that is death. And you start doing that, you'll be able to 2x your sales just from that as well. So in the form lead, specifically using, you know, a system, the Ninja Bob system, or in general, just being able to call the form lead back within 5 minutes every time. What you do to get in hold of the form lead or to talk to the person who calls in, you know, within the respective amount of time that I said will give you a 2x difference on the amount of money you're making from your PPC. And then after you contacted them, you can 2x again by what you do on the follow-up process, using a good lead tracking system and not giving up on people. As ridiculous as it seems to call people back, these people will appreciate you contacting them, believe it or not, and they'll trust you because you actually, it seems like you care when you follow up and you don't ask, are you ready to buy yet? Okay, no, buy. Hey Jim, I know you called about the phishing package that you were interested in, and you leave notes, by the way, on the CRM. Was interested in the phishing package for the trip to, you know, Mankato, Minnesota. So when you call that person back, you've got something to say other than, you know, if it seems like you're too upfront and you just want the money, it won't work. Hey, I know you were asking about the phishing package, John, for your Mankato, Minnesota trip. Oh yeah, and then you'll start talking with them. Yeah, you'll talk to them for a minute or two, and maybe you'll get them to buy, and maybe you won't. But it only took 1 minute, let's say, or 2 minutes to talk to that person, which, you know, let's say a couple $100 sale was behind you, and it only took a 1 minute phone call, okay? And you can afford to do a 1 minute phone call a few times to get that $300 sale. Even if you're selling something for $50, if you're doing that, you probably got lifetime value to consider. In other words, the person's going to buy from you again and again. And the hardest thing is just getting them to buy from you once, because they don't trust you at first, right? So you look at how much you on average, you just open your books and see on average, or you get a lifetime value tracking program for your shopping cart or whatever, and you just see what a customer's worth over their lifespan. And then when you need to justify to yourself doing this follow-up, you know that if you can get them to buy once, on average, they're going to buy 5 more times, and their customer's worth $300. We can spend a minute to follow up somebody 2 weeks after they call, even though they didn't ask for it, and even though it takes a little bit of our salesperson's time. Okay? So there's another free tip for you. 2 extra results again. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I put a decent amount of work into this one to get all those stats together. Hope you enjoyed it. I have a lot of different money-making PPC strategy videos on this channel. If you want to learn how to make good money with PPC, how to build the campaign, so forth, you should definitely check those out. I have the best channel on YouTube currently as it comes to YouTube, or excuse me, PPC money-making strategies. That said, I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on the way that I build campaigns. Also, that can make you a lot of money. If you want to see how I do things to guarantee our clients results, you can find information along those lines there. If you have any questions about anything that I covered here today on the video, leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel within a day or 2 time, typically. With all that said, I hope to also, I'll have a video coming out in another day or 2. I hope to see you on that one as well. It'll be another banger just like this one. Hopefully see you there.